These are your 8-7 factoring trinomial notes. A little bit different than a different approach today. So in 8-6, we did guess and check. We did the square method. And maybe you noticed that guessing and checking is sometimes really easy, and then other times it's a little bit more difficult to do. So I'd like to come up with another method of solving or factoring trinomials rather than guessing and checking. So it just sort of helps you in your guessing and checking. So you all received a packet of product and sums, a yellow packet, and it can be used as a tool. You don't have to fill that out, but we'll talk about that, how we can use that today. So using a product sum table, you basically have all of your numbers that will give you the last number of a trinomial and then the middle term on that product sum table. So you're going to write the trinomial in standard form. It's important that it's in standard form. So you put the squared term out in front, you put x in the middle, and then you have that constant in the back. And then you're going to use a product sum table. And what the product sum table is, you're just going to keep track of a multiply number and an add number. The product is the multiply number, and then the add number is your sum. So when you look for a product, you're looking for the product that takes in consideration A and C. That A value out in front will multiply, and it will affect how big C has to be. So we have to consider both. So you ask yourself what multiplies to give you a C and adds to give you B. Okay, so the product is the two outside your first term coefficient and the last term, and what adds to give you B. When you find those two numbers, what two numbers multiply to give you AC and adds to give you B, you will break up B into those two numbers. Okay? And so then what that does is it breaks our trinomial into 4 terms. We want to know what that value was before we combine like terms. If it was a 10x here, if it was 10x, we want to know what was 10x before it was 10x. Was it an even split, 5x and 5x? Or what if the 10x was a 6x and a 2x? Well, that wouldn't work, a 4x. What if 10x was a 11x and a negative 1x? We need to know what the two middle terms were before we put them together. Once you know that, that's what the product sum will tell you. Once you know that, you have 4 terms, we might as well just use solving and factoring by grouping. So that's exactly what you're going to do. You're going to come up with a multiply and add number. You're going to use that little yellow sheet. We'll talk more about it tomorrow or in class. And then you're going to factor by grouping. It's using a technique that we already know. So rather than talk about it hypothetically, let's do some problems. We need to factor this. We are going to use the product and sums table. Okay? So we look to see, is it written in descending or in standard form? It is. It goes from squared to x to the first to no x's. Off to the side, I'm going to make a product sum table. I'm looking for a number that multiplies to give me 50, but also that adds to give me positive 27. So once again, to come up with that multiply number, you take the first term A and the last term C, and you multiply them together. To come up with your add number, it's your middle term, B, and you keep the signs with them. So everything was positive here. So I am looking for two numbers that multiply to give me 50, but also add to give me 27. So I'm looking for what multiplies to give me 50, but also adds to give me 27. It's like a little riddle. This is where that product sum page comes into play. So if you would find on that product sum page, your yellow sheet that I gave you, I want you to find 50. Whether you did it already or you still need to do it, you need to find 50. And I believe it's on the front side. Oh, it isn't here. So 50 is not on here, so we're going to go to the very back, and we're going to add the product and sums for 50 so you understand how to fill this out. So in your product and sum sheet, We're going to put 50 in the box because that's my product. Okay? And we're just going to go ahead and go through all the different products of 50. You will run out of products of 50. You will never run out of sums. So 1 and 50, -1 and -50 also multiply to give you positive 50. 2 and 25, -2 and -25. 3 doesn't go into it. 4 doesn't go into it. 5 goes into it 10 times. So -5 goes into it and -10 times. 6 doesn't go into it. 7, 8, 9. We're done. We're back to 10. So now we're going to look at all the sums of these products. So two numbers that multiply to give me 50 are 1 and 50. They add up to 51. Two numbers that multiply to give me 50 are -1 and -50. They'd add up to -51. 27, -27. 15 and -15. So now using that table, I can clearly see, now that I have it, I will always have it for 50. And I look and I say, oh, what multiplies to give me 50 and adds to give me positive 27? It's 2 and 25. Now you may not need that table, but it's there to help you. Okay, so some of you guys are going to struggle with just coming up with those two numbers. So the two numbers that you can multiply to give me 50 are 2 and 25, but they also add up to 27. 2 plus 25 is 27. So that tells me that this middle term of 27x was a 2x and a 25x before we put it together. We're undoing the multiplication. We're factoring. So we're going to rewrite 5x squared. You rewrite the first term. I'm going to put 25x with the 5x plus 2x and then plus 10. So notice I write down the first term, I split up the second term, and I write down the last term. So I have 4 terms, first, outer, inner, last. The first term remains unchanged. The last term remains unchanged. It was only that middle term of the trinomial that we split apart. And this is what 27x was before it was 27x. Now, you could put the 25 and the 2x in a different order. I just wanted to put the 25 with the 5. I'm going to split it down the middle, and I'm going to factor by grouping. This is what we just quizzed on. So I'm going to take out a 5x, divide by 5x, divide by 5x. So 5x times the quantity, x plus 5. And then on the other side, I'm going to take out a 2, factor out a 2, a positive 2, and that leaves me with a quantity x plus 5. One wonderful thing about grouping is because I have the same matching quantities, that tells me I'm doing it right. So I take the outside numbers and I put them together. So 5x plus 2 times the quantity x plus 5. And there's your factored form. Okay, our answers are going to be a binomial times a binomial again. Your work is completely different now. You do show some work. But what's nice is you're not struggling there forever trying to find the right combination of numbers. Okay, let's go ahead and try number 2. So for number 2, it's already written in the right order. I'm going to come over here and come up with a multiply and add number. So I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to give me whatever 32 times 4 is, which is 128, and that adds to give me 24. Okay, what's going to multiply to give me 128, because that's that 4 and that 32, and then adds to give me 24. Man, that's really big. I don't know my multiplications up to 128, so I'm going to stop for a second. And what I realize is that this equation, a 4, could be taken out of all of them. So anytime you get a really big number here, maybe you could have taken something out, like a greatest common factor, that would make the numbers a little bit smaller. So I'm going to step back. I'm going to forget about this, and I'm going to factor out a 4. So many times we try to factor. It would still work, but you'd have to take the 4 out at the end, and a lot of people forget to take the 4 out at the end. So I wanted to show you that. When you get a really big number, step back and say, maybe I should have taken something out to make this smaller. X squared plus 6x plus 8 is my remaining term, my remaining trinomial. Okay, so I have this 4 out here. Just leave it alone. Don't forget about it. But we don't have to write it down every time. Maybe I'll just carry it down here and write it as part of my answer. I know my answer is going to be a binomial when I'm all said and done, but I don't need to work with the 4 anymore. I don't need to write it down every single time. So now our focus is on this remaining term. It's a trinomial. So I'm going to make my product and sum table. I'm going to say what multiplies to give me 8, because this is a 1 times an 8, and what adds to give me 6. So if you look on your yellow sheet, hopefully 8 is on there. And if you go down to find 8 in the box, positive 8 in the box, and where you find the sum of 6, the two numbers that multiply to give you 8 are 4 and 2, and the two numbers that add to give you 6 are 4 and 2. So that tells me that that was the middle term before it became 6x. So we're going to go ahead and use 4 and 2. I'm going to rewrite x squared, split up 6x into 2x, a positive 2x, and a positive 4x, and I'm going to rewrite plus 8. So I have first, outer, inner, last. You're taking the outer and inner and separating them. Now we have 4 terms. We can factor by grouping. Divide by x, divide by x. We factored out an x, leaves me with x plus 2. Take out a 4, take out a 4. When I factor out a 4, it leaves me with x plus 2. Because the x plus 2's match, I can put the x plus 4 together. So that's what I have down here. I'm not going to forget about the 4 on the outside. I took that out earlier. 4 times x plus 4 times x plus 2. And that is your prime factorization. You always look at the other factors. Can I take anything else out of x plus 2? And the answer is no. Can I take anything out of the x plus 4? And the answer is no. Now, let's just say, you don't have to write this down, but just pay attention to this part. What if I didn't take that 4 out? Okay, in the beginning, what if I said, I'm going to find the numbers that make this work. They're huge, but I'm not afraid of huge numbers. That's fine. So you go ahead and you factor, and you get this as your answer instead. You may get 4x plus 16 times the quantity x plus 2. Well, if you look at that as an answer, okay, it will give you the 4x squared. It will give you the 24x, and it'll give you 32 in the end. But when you look at this quantity right here, that can be factored again. And so you'd have to take a 4 out, take a 4 out, put the 4 on the outside, and you're right back to the original answer. The problem is a lot of people leave their answer this way, and that's not all the way factored. Okay, so you have to be careful. You always have to look for the other quantities. The best way I can explain that, if I asked you guys to factor 20 and give me the prime factorization of 20, and you gave me 4 times 5. Well, 4 times 5 is a factored form of 20, but it's not the prime factor form. You've got to break down 4 some more, okay? And so it's the same thing here. This is factored. It is a product of factors, but this can be factored some more, so you got to keep factoring. My suggestion is to take it out first. So we always look for GCF first, okay? Nice little lesson in that. All right, number 3 here. So let's go ahead. We have a 1 out in front here. It's already in the right order. Most of them will probably be in the right order in that standard form. So we're looking for what multiplies to give me 1 times 24, which is 24, and what adds to give me negative 5. So I look at my product sum sheet, okay, and if you completed your product sum sheet, you should have numbers for 24. If you haven't, you might want to do that right now. So you're looking for, on your sheet, just to review that really quick, go through all your products of 24. So that's positive 1, positive 24, negative 1, negative 24, 2 and 12, negative 2, negative 12, 3 and 8, negative 3, negative 8, 4 and 6, negative 4, negative 6. Those are all of them. I'm done. I will not have any more. So then the sums look like this. We got 25 and we've got negative 25. We got 14 and negative 14, 11 and negative 11, 10 and negative 10. So looking for the one that adds up to -5, what multiplies to give me -5 and adds to give me 24, or I'm sorry, multiplies to give me 24 and adds to give me -5, I don't see any numbers. I don't see any combinations that give me that representative. Okay, I don't see -5 anywhere on my page. So that tells me this is prime. This is a prime answer. I went through every single possibility, every single combination here, and I couldn't find one. I never found a sum of -5, unless I did something wrong, which I'm looking back through my work, and I didn't. Everything works out. If it was a -24, it might work, but in this particular case, it's prime. Prime means I can't break it down. It's done. If I asked you to write the prime factorization of 7, you'd say, I can't. It's just 7. 7 times 1. It's prime. It's done. I can't break it down into any other factors besides 1 and itself. So that's going to get introduced here today too, is that sometimes you can't factor the actual problem. So you write prime. Okay, let's go on to number 4. Number 4, we're looking for what multiplies to give me -15 and what adds to give me 7. So if you go on your chart and you look at -15, now when you have your chart of values for negative numbers, and I'm just going to do this really quick because we didn't talk about it a whole lot. When you have negative numbers and you do the products, you're going to write one positive, one negative. So a -1 with a +15, but how about a +1 with a -15? They both give you -15 when you multiply. 2 doesn't go into it. 3 with -5 and -3 with +5. So now that I have all of my products of -15, I'm going to add them up. When I add a 15 and a -1, it's subtraction. It's 14. When I add a 1 and a -15, it's subtraction, but now it's negative. -14. -2 and +2. So again, I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to give me -15 and add to give me 7. There are none. Now you might have spent a lot of time trying to do that had you used guess, check, and revise. So this is what's nice about these product sums, is it really tells you if it's prime or not. Okay, that there is no possible guess and check. It doesn't work. So I showed you 2 prime examples there and kind of worked through the product sum table. And lastly is lovely solving, right? We're going to use ZPP again. We're going to solve. So in ZPP, first thing we got to do is we got to take care of the Z, the 0. We do not have a 0 in here. So we're going to bring a 0 in. It has to equal 0. When I subtract 17x from both sides, there's nothing that it's like on the other side. So I'm going to put it in the middle of those two terms. 2x squared minus 17x plus 30 equals 0. I took care of the Z. The P is the product part. I need to rewrite this as a product. That's when you factor. Is there a GCF? No, there is not. So we simply make a product sum table. You ask yourself what multiplies to give me 60 and what adds to give me -17. I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to give me +60 and adds to give me -17. And your answer is 20 and 3. But that's not going to work. 20 and 3, if they're both positive, is going to give you 23. If they're both negative, because they would have to be both positive or negative, you're going to get a -23. So having that table of values is good to have, the completed table. Let's go through another option. 15 goes into 60 4 times. That's not going to give me 17. 2 goes into it 30 times. That's not going to give me 60. 6 and 10, not going to work. It's 12 and 5. So if you're just trying to do this on the fly, it's a little bit more difficult. Okay, I thought I was going to get 17 by just looking at 20 and 3. I saw a 17 here, but the signs didn't work. If I have a -12 times a -5, I will get a +60. If I have a negative 12 and I add negative 5, I will get a negative 17. So it's kind of a nice time saver to have that yellow sheet filled out. Here's the thing, as you do your problems, fill it out as you go along, okay? But be complete. If you're trying to find the factors of 60, go through all the factors of 60. Don't stop once you find your answer, because you never know when you might need another answer. So I'm going to split this up into negative 12 and negative 5. I'm going to keep the 2x squared. I'm going to put the negative 12x with the 2 and put the negative 5x with the 30. So first, outer, inner, last. I still have it equal 0. We're trying to get a product. Break it down the middle. Divide by 2x. Divide by 2x. Take out a 2x. X minus 6. Divide by negative 5. Divide by negative 5. Negative 5 times the quantity, x minus 6. Because the two quantities match, that tells me I can put the other two together. 2x minus 5 times the quantity x minus 6 is equal to 0. We're almost there. We have a product that equals 0. So now we can say that 2x minus 5 equals 0 or x minus 6 equals 0. If 2x minus 5 is equal to 0, we're going to add 5 to both sides and divide by 2. And x is equal to 5 halves. If x minus 6 is the one that's equal to 0, we're going to add 6, and x is equal to 6. 6 and 5 halves are your solutions. So just like before, you got to have a 0, you got to have a product. It just takes a little bit more time to get that product. I'm going to force you to use this method on the homework tomorrow. And then you can pick and choose. We'll talk about like some strategies. Okay? So your lesson summary. I want you guys to come up with the multiply numbers. What would the numbers have to multiply up to, and what would they have to add up to? I'm not looking for the actual numbers. I'm looking for what is your multiply number, what's your product, and what's your sum that you're looking for there. And then I want you to factor 2x squared minus x minus 1. Good luck.